I sure hope they're paying attention, because Vladimir Putin has just issued what can only be described as a chilling warning involving nuclear weapons, global world order, and NATO's continued provocation. Oh, and that NATO lie that Russia launched an unprovoked war against Ukraine. Yeah, that lie is now crumbling right before our eyes. We've got a few big stories that are unfolding this weekend that I want to bring to you. So while Russia had nuclear submarines off the Florida coast this week, and Putin was laying out a nuclear policy with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the White House was busy doing important work for Pride Month, inviting men in dresses to stage fake press conferences in the White House press briefing room.
JVN.
Oh, yes.
Is it true that is all your natural hair?
Yes, I can confirm that this is not a wig.
Follow-up question, do you use your own products?
So now you know why the world doesn't take us seriously anymore. But over to someone who people are taking seriously, and that's Vladimir Putin right now. So Asia rolled out the red carpet for Putin this week during his Asia tour, which included stops in North Korea, Vietnam. Putin dropped a bombshell, both metaphorically and potentially literally. He called out NATO, citing recent escalations and threats. He's signaling a potential change to Russia's nuclear deterrence policy. And he said defeat in Ukraine would mean the end of Russia. A defeat in Ukraine would mean the end of Russia. So that's not going to happen despite what NATO thinks.
I think Zelensky and his friends will obviously know when there are Russian tanks in Kiev. I'm afraid that's what it's probably going to take. And I think Mr. Putin has figured that out. And I sense that something really big is coming.
This is a major change to their nuclear policy. So now Russia will not just use nukes in response to nukes if they're attacked, but also if there's a threat to the existence of Russia itself. So what's exceedingly chilling about that is that Putin is combining rhetoric with a very tangible show of military support. He's not just blathering on and making statements that he's not backing up. No, he's putting in place a Russian nuclear triad, which is a strategic defense mechanism that consists of intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and bombers. This is not just a hollow threat, guys. The nuclear triad, by the way, is crucial for maintaining a balance of power in the world, and it's something only a few nations, including the United States, actually possess. So take a look at this map. This is really interesting. This shows what countries have nuclear triad capabilities right now. And when you look at this, what does this mean in practical terms? Well, it shows Russia's readiness to elevate its strategic deterrence to any perceived existential threats. And as Putin sternly noted when he was in Vietnam, this involves not just theoretical capabilities, but actual deployment of advanced systems across the world. This is why Putin's comments this week are so worrying, particularly for NATO. He told the press that Russia's nuclear forces are constantly in a state of combat readiness, bolstered by recent agreements with nations like North Korea. Now let's discuss NATO as a piece of this. So Putin's rhetoric isn't happening in a vacuum. There are specific provocations by NATO that will lead us to war. Nigel Farage this week let the cat out of the bag. The West brought war to Ukraine. It's NATO's fault that Putin invaded Ukraine. And he said this back in 2014 on the floor of Parliament.
Just to make that worse, of course, some NATO members said they too would like the Ukraine to join NATO. We directly encouraged the uprising in the Ukraine that led to the toppling of the President Yanukovych, and that led, of course, in turn to Vladimir Putin reacting. And the moral of the story is if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts.
So that was 2014 after the coup in Ukraine, and he's warning us again that Putin doesn't bluff. Keep poking the bear, and we are going to be facing World War III.
I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and I said, and I quote, there will be a war in Ukraine. Why did I say that? It was obvious to me that the ever eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union was giving this man a reason to his Russian people to say they're coming for us again and to go to war.
And during his talks, Putin pointed to NATO's activities as threats not only in Europe, but now even in the Asia-Pacific region. He said this while he was in North Korea, and he said this while he was in Vietnam. Antiwar.com reports that he accused NATO of threatening security in Asia for Russia and other nations, making a deeply interconnected argument that any NATO action globally is a potential threat to Russian security anywhere. So this, guys, is a huge departure. And now NATO is not ignoring Putin's message.
Putin must not win that would show that aggression works and force is rewarded. It would be dangerous for our own security and for the whole world. So we must sustain and step up our support for Ukraine.
So now NATO is responding to Putin's response, to their response. You see how this goes, this escalation? So when Putin uses the word existential, an existential threat, he means a threat to the very existence of something. In this case, a threat to the existence of Russia. The threat to Russia's existence is NATO, walking right up to their doorstep. Now, a few weeks ago, NATO posted a tweet saying, "We never made a deal with Russia. We never told them that we wouldn't expand. We never put that in writing. We're a defensive organization that is totally peaceful, and we have every right to expand." Well, that, of course, was an absolute lie, and now we have confirmation that it's a lie. Newly unearthed documents from the year 1990 from then U.S. Secretary of State James Baker put it in writing, sending a letter to Gorbachev in Russia, saying, quote, "NATO won't expand even 1 inch to the east, and you have our assurances of that." Boom! In writing. So NATO lied to all of us. Here you have the de facto head of NATO saying he won't expand 1 inch. You don't have to worry about it. And just look at that expansion to Russia's doorstep. This is a crazy time lapse showing just how far and how fast NATO has marched. Not only has NATO expanded, but they've quite literally surrounded Russia. This is not going to end well. Now we need to look at the North Korean piece of this, and it's often overlooked how deep these alliances are. Putin's recent pact with Kim Jong-un ramps up the stakes even further. And this isn't, guys, just some posturing here. This agreement strengthens military ties, nuclear energy ties, sending uranium to North Korea, and could even see advanced weapon systems in Pyongyang, a direct counterbalance to the United States' presence in South Korea. And, by the way, Putin threatened South Korea this past week. Putin warned South Korea that arms deliveries to Ukraine would be a, quote, very big mistake, and that Russia, quote, reserves the right to supply weapons to other regions in response, meaning that if the West arms Ukraine, Russia arms North Korea, and you'd be making a huge mistake if this happens. He basically said, don't try it, I'm not bluffing. We're at a very perilous precipice right now. Putin's warnings cannot and should not be dismissed. He's aligning military might with strategic partnerships and has set clear red lines that NATO and the West cannot afford to ignore. They can't afford to ignore these signals or misrepresent them as mere saber rattling. He doesn't bluff. As Nigel Farage said, if you poke the bear, you're going to get attacked.
And the moral of the story is if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, don't be surprised when he reacts.
So guys, that's the news update part of today's video. Now I want to tell you about today's sponsor, which is tied directly to what is happening with Russian uranium and North America's almost total lack of uranium right now. Of course, the Biden administration just banned imports of uranium from Russia. So now it's up to us in North America to produce our own uranium. If you are even remotely bullish on uranium, as I am, then you need to pay attention to what I'm about to show you. This company is called Atha Energy. Now, here is their ticker on your screen. They're located in Canada, and as Zero Hedge reported this week, Canada is set to boom in uranium production now that Russia is out of the picture. And which company is primed to take advantage of this boom? Yes, exactly. Atha Energy. Guys, this is my favorite uranium play because of what I'm about to show you. And just so you understand where my head is around this right now, after 13 years of planning, Atha has the potential to see an appreciation of thousands of % from where its share price is right now. And that's in my personal opinion, but I can back that claim easily based on my heavy research of this company. And not every exploration company can claim that. And certainly if they can claim that, there are very few that actually have the goods to deliver on that claim. So guys, there are two big pieces of this story and what the founders first did 10 years ago, okay? 10 years ago, right after Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, no one wanted to talk about nuclear power. So what did these guys do when everyone else was running away from nuclear? They ran towards it. And fortune favors the bold. They went to the best uranium jurisdiction in the world, in Canada, and they staked as much land as they possibly could get their hands on, over 4 million acres. They own the largest land package in North America. So they accumulated promising claims when everyone else was scared. They basically did what Warren Buffett always says to do is, when everyone else is scared, go shopping. That's exactly what they did. They went shopping. And they sat on this land, waiting for the right time to start drilling on it and pulling that uranium out of the ground. And that moment is right now. So for the very first time since the founding of this company, they are now breaking ground and starting the drilling process with the most robust program I've ever seen in my career. So the reason this company is called ATHA is because of the Athabasca Basin in Canada, where they own 4 million acres of land, which if you've watched my show for any length of time, you know the Athabasca Basin is the highest grade uranium jurisdiction in the world. It's the best. And it's in Canada. It's not in Russia. It's not in Kazakhstan. It's not in Africa. And this company owns 4.8 million acres in the Athabasca Basin, the highest grade uranium deposits in the world. The other big piece of this story is that a few months ago, I told you about ATHA and that they were getting ready to acquire 2 companies. Well, now they've completed that triple merger. And what's amazing is how much money they raised as a result of that triple merger. So look at your screen. Right now, the share price of ATHA at this recording is 56 cents. Now, when they triple merged, they raised $45 million, and they raised that money at a share price of 75 cents. In other words, investors and institutional traders gave them $45 million because they believe the share price is well worth beyond 75 cents a share. So you follow me? Right now, as of this recording, the share price is 56 cents. It has to go up 45% in value just to be back to where millionaire investors paid for their shares. And those, by the way, are restricted shares. You guys know I like to invest for the long term, but even if you're a short-term trader who's looking for a beautiful little short-term trade with a 45% upside potential, you're potentially looking at one right here. But even if you're not a short-term trader, look at this. Analysts have a price target on this company of $2.25 per share, meaning analysts believe this stock will appreciate to at least $2.25 per share. That's a 300% increase over today's price. Guys, you know that I don't just invest in companies, I invest in the leadership team of the companies. And the management and leadership of this company have already done it multiple times before. Okay, they were involved in the formation and operation of companies that went up 23-fold. And now they've put together what I personally believe to be the most impressive and inherently brilliant uranium company in the whole uranium industry right now. And I study this very closely. No company even comes close to these guys. And now they're starting to drill, which is always my favorite time to invest, before they start the drilling process. If you're in North America, 20% of American households rely on nuclear. 15% of that used to come from Russia up until a few weeks ago. That is why Zero Hedge is out with this report. Get ready for a boom in uranium production in Canada. Guys, do your own research on ATHA Energy. Here is their ticker on your screen. I'm going to have links to their website in the description below. You go out there and study this company, and hopefully you'll see what I see. And we'll see you next time, everyone.